Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. I have a client case study interview today here for you guys with Webinar Wizards. And it's Mr. Callum Carver. It's Mr. Skill to Profit. How you doing today, bro? Thank you for taking the time.
Very good.
Thank you for
Yeah,
taking
no,
the time to come and do this.
thank you for having me on. No, I'm good. I'm a little bit burnt, but apart from that,
Yeah,
well,
bro, you do look a little bit pink. And my neck got it a little bit the other day. But anyway, we won't talk about our sunburn too much. For the people watching who may not have seen you on all short form and YouTube platforms over the past few years, do you want to explain a little bit about Skill to Profit and Profit to Scale and what it is that you actually do?
of course, yeah. So I have a following on short form platform TikTok, Instagram. I started making content about 4 years ago now. Typically trying to find a way to make money online, kind of diving into the online business world. And I started off my own agency, grew that pretty well, and then pivoted into coaching as the typical agency owners do. But did it with like a different kind of perspective, as per to teaching people how to run like a business model. I wanted to teach people how to monetize their own skills, their own core kind of skill set, which is why I launched Skill to Profit, which is basically a program that helps people identify their skills, learn those skills, monetize those skills, find the market for those skills, create an offer for those skills, and really turn it into like a substantial, foundationally strong business as per to a business model that will go out of date and the trend will die in a few months' time. So yeah, that's what we do. It's a kind of one-to-one slash group coaching program where we literally help people turn their skills into profit and then also scale that profit into 10, 20, 10, 20, 30K a month. So kind of what we do.
And it is a brilliant program for those of you who are watching who might not have seen any of my videos before or Callum's videos before. I was actually one of the first people to join the program about, oh God, don't know, like well over a year ago now. So I was one of Callum's first students, and we actually have a case study interview on your channel for your coaching program, which is kind of ironic. But so when you launched Skill to Profit, you had never really sold anything kind of like too high ticket to your audience before. And I know that with the audience that you had a really big, you had a big start to Skills Profit when you launched it. Uh, and it seems like you've managed to hold it pretty consistent with the funnel. So, sorry, let me get back to my question. What was the funnel that you were using when you first launched Skill to Profit, or kind of like your main kind of evergreen funnel that you're using right now?
Yeah, so before Skill to Profit, I originally had like a low ticket program, which was like more of a community kind of thing, but it just didn't allow me to deliver the best results to people. So I moved to high ticket, in which I could really get people's attention and invest a lot of my own time in them. The funnel we used primarily was like a very typical just booking a call funnel. So it was literally landing page. I think it went to Previously, it literally just went to booking a call. That was quite literally it, and then we qualified them on the call booking page. More recently, we now go to a type form to them booking a call. It's kind of like the evergreen leads that come through naturally. So yeah, that's the funnel, as typical as you can kind of be.
So what I was going to ask was obviously that funnel got you to a seven-figure run rate. So what was it kind of like? What was it that first got you thinking about doing webinars as like a kind of like an additional running that kind of funnel, even though your existing funnel was already working really well?
Yeah, so I mean, webinars, like the whole kind of logic behind it, just made complete sense to me. It's basically one massive sales call, essentially, from like one to many. In terms of like killing off limiting beliefs, providing value, providing an insight to what the program consists of, and this kind of stuff. And so it was more just like a tool of leverage, right? Of how you can actually, instead of the funnel typically being one by one, come in, they book in a call, get qualified, blah blah blah. It's a case of where everyone will get informed at once. And then from that point onwards, it's kind of more of like a squeeze funnel almost, like qualifying people that are still interested in the program and actually are willing to jump on and take action. Because what we had is that with the funnel that we were running, it was a very kind of typical process of the same kind of objections. It's a fears, uncertainty around the program, not really sure what's inside of it, not sure if it's valuable enough. But the idea of running a webinar allows you to kind of like pre pre-objection handle those objections, right? In terms of like making sure that they know what's inside the program. They understand me as a person because I've already delivered value to them. And yeah, to me, it made complete sense just a leverage opportunity in terms of doing one to many as per to one to one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that before you ended up working with us, you were I know that you were watching YouTube videos, you were looking at people like John Pemberthy and you were watching some stuff. Why, you are one of the most competent business owners I know, and you're a great copywriter, and you understand funnel building, and you managed to get Skill to Profit to a seven-figure run rate by yourself. You don't have a growth operator or anyone like that. Why did you not choose to do this yourself?
Mhm. Yeah, so yeah, you're completely right. I mean, when webinars was kind of like the new like idea baby of okay, we should try this because it's more unique. It's gonna also it's a bit has a bit of a wow factor, right? As a funnel, where it's not just typically like, just jump into the funnel and convert, but it's like you have something to convert onto, and people always want something to grab onto the other end, as opposed to just book a call to book a call. Like there being an event allows people to like build up some excitement and some kind of incentive to go and join it. So the reason I wanted to kind of outsource it and find someone that could do it was more because of the fact that I understand that the more I split my focus as a business owner, the less I am kind of performing in each and every single avenue. So I have my strengths within the business and building a webinar, there's a lot of different moving pieces to go into it. Like people think you just put on a live show and kind of just like run them through the course, but there's a lot of strategy that goes into it. There's a lot of biopsychology. There's a lot of killing off limiting beliefs and providing value, and also the pre-flow to the actual webinar and making sure SMS is getting sent out, email flows, all this kind of stuff. There's a lot that goes into it. So my kind of mindset in terms of when launching a new idea or a new avenue or just a new branch within the business is how can I find or who is someone who can do this, that they put in all their attention, they live and breathe and kind of, sleep the avenue that I want to expand into that I can then outsource to, because I'd much rather have, a smaller piece of a bigger pie essentially, as
Mm.
per to me doing everything myself. And I'm stretching my focus so much to the point of where I'm not performing as well as I possibly could do on the things that I am best at.
And, when you started working with us, obviously I was part of a coaching program and we had a good relationship before, which probably played a big part in why you ended up going with us at the time. But why did you choose us over other people in the market, despite the fact that at the time we did have minimal case studies? We'd only done one or two webinars before. And obviously I was doing some other stuff in the info space like funnel building, go high level building. But what was it about choosing us that kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, so I mean, I, I kind of had that unfair advantage of knowing you beforehand, where it wasn't a case of you hit me through DM outreach and I had to then decide if I wanted to work with you. Like I understood how competent you were within the online business space, and I remember beforehand you were doing like a mixture of things that all equated to like webinar building, but it wasn't specific webinar building. So you were doing back end systems, you were doing copywriting, you were helping people with their flows and stuff like that, and it all pointed towards the same direction of you should just package this all up and put it into a webinar. And then you did, you made that agency that you run now. And it just made complete sense in terms of I understand the way that you work. And I think the biggest thing as well is that you love the art of webinar building. Like you love the actual art of running it and the art of the psychology behind it. And now we've done a few webinars now, right? And each and every single time we do it, it's not a case of we go back and we kind of like rest our feet and it's like, cool, we're done for now. It's like, cool, let's plan the next one. Let's see what we can improve on. And a lot of the time it's not a game of, all right, cool, yeah, now we get to reward ourselves. It's a game of cool, let's look at what worked, look at what we did and improve on it. And I knew that beforehand, before running the first webinar, that you're someone that loves the craft. And I think that's what makes sense when it comes to you choosing an agency to work with. It's not someone that, paints a really nice picture about the result that you could get. It's just like someone that's actually in the thick of it. And you're someone that was in the thick of it. So it made sense. I mean, I'm the same. I don't make content around a flashy lifestyle and stuff like that. I'll make content around the depths of the information I'm trying to provide. And you were exactly the same. So yeah, it kind of made sense.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that, dude. So, something else that I wanted to ask as well is obviously you are running for context, when we do these webinars together, we're typically doing them around once a month, and we'll have like a 1 week promo, and Callum will run his VSL book a call funnel for the majority of the rest of the time because we don't want to take too much attention away from the main funnel and disrupt it too much when we do the webinars. One thing that I wanted to ask you is if obviously I know that you communicate with your sales manager, your sales reps. Is there a notable difference between the call bookings? Because when we run webinars, the call to action is to book a call for the high ticket program. Now, is there a difference in the people who come onto the calls from webinars as opposed to the people who come through the type form and the VSL and the book a call funnel?
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, my closers get more excited than I do because they know that for each call they're going to jump on, it's just a case of collecting cash. Like at that point, they're warm, they're excited, they understand what they've been through, and it's yeah, they've basically already had like a pre-sales call before the actual sales call, right? So the sales team absolutely love it, and there is like a massive notable difference, not only in the amount of traffic that comes through, because obviously with a webinar, you either try and sell on a webinar or you book a call. We focus on the booking a call side of things because people need like a kind of they need discussion before just purchasing. That's the way that we find it works. But yeah, traffic, huge difference in traffic because obviously it's one massive push, and that push typically lasts for about like 2 weeks because also we follow up with, people that attended the webinar that didn't necessarily book a call straight then and there. So typically there's like a 2-week run rate after the webinar in which all the leads have come from the webinar. But not only that, it's evergreen. We'll have people that will join 2 months later and they'll be like, "I was on the first webinar and I didn't buy then, but I did this and did this and did this and I'm interested." So it kind of plants a seed in people's brains. So yeah, massive difference in traffic and the quality of leads as well. I mean, I think it also depends on how you run the webinar, in terms of like whether it's paid, whether it's free. But when we do the paid webinars, for example, they are financially qualified. They are incredibly warm. They are willing to take action. It's just a case of typically it's just logistical objections, in terms of, oh, I don't get paid until next week, so then I'll be able to check out. But for the majority of it, massive increase in traffic, massive increase in quality of leads. Which is now why we're trying to do the webinar so frequently, right? So we can kind of create a system where every month we get a like 2-week run rate of fresh, high quality leads that then we can close. Um, but yeah, I think it's also finding that balance between uh, the normal funnel that I run and the webinar funnel to not kind of like cross over too much. But yeah, massive difference with the webinar funnel. I mean, if I could run it evergreen, and I could do a webinar every single week without the audience burning out and me burning out, 100% I would do. But I think there's a good balance that you've got to kind of hit when it comes to the frequency of the webinars.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that there's 2 points there that you were talking about is the follow-up. I feel the fact that you have such a dialed in operation with your sales manager, with your appointment setters, with your closers, that it allows us to recoup so much cash after the webinar as well. Like most people think that, you do the webinar, you make the pitch, and everyone who books in, you just leave it there. But we have a real good process of, making sure that the setters are reaching out to everyone who was there, the people who watched the pitch, the people who didn't attend, we offer them the replay. And that's something that we've kind of built up over time, which is like the next thing that I was going to ask you is, you know, do you, how much do you value the long-term aspect of our relationship doing this together? Because I always say to people, like, the first one will never be a grand slam because we need to test the messaging, we need to test the funnel, we need to see how people react to it. How, you know, what has been something that you found really valuable with working with us on a kind of longer term basis? I think it's been like 6 months now or so.
Yeah. I think it's just the fact that there's a long-term perspective on things. I think that there's agencies out there that will run a webinar with you and they'll look so incredibly short term, that I think it ruins the longevity of potentially running webinars, right? So for example, for us, we've thought about like a different messaging for every single webinar, right? Whether it's the start of the year or it's a new program launch or there's a new idea that we can push forward. Other agencies won't think of that. They'll just literally copy and paste a template, chuck it on because they understand that, maybe their lifetime value per customer is far lower. But working with you guys, it's more of a case of knowing that there's a long-term play always involved. Um, it gives me confidence as well that this isn't a one and done service. Like it's a service that will benefit me, will benefit my company, or will make us a shit ton of money for months and months and months to come because there's always a kind of there's always an outlook for, okay, cool, how can we improve next time? And then the time after that, and the time after that, and time after that. And that just, those are the kind of agencies that you want to work with in the online business space, not people that are one and done or will kind of collect the cash and disappear, but it's people that are in the thick of it with you. I think that's another part as well, where they're in the trenches. For example, I remember a short while back, I think it was a few months ago now, when we were doing a new webinar, you like jumped on a call with my sales team, and started having a chat with like my closers about what the objections are that they find. Other agencies wouldn't do that. They would just kind of say, well, this script worked for this guy. Before you, I was having a chat with a few other webinar people based in the US, right? And they were basically saying we write the entire webinar for you, and we just kind of put the script out there and you read off it. You take a different perspective where you really like pay attention to the language you use and the tone, like the tonality, tone of voice, and also like speaking to the closers and stuff to really understand the objections of the people that are typically on the sales calls. Like you're in the trenches, and I think that that's the biggest difference. I think that's what how you stand out as an agency, and I think that that's why, as well, when people run webinars with you, that I mean, I doubt that you ever have a one and done kind of webinar. It will always be a case of, well, let's do this in a month, let's do this in a few months again, because of the fact that you show quality attention towards actually the craft of it. And yeah, you plan ahead, which I think is super,
Yeah.
super important as well.
Yeah, you are right. People get like excited by it because they realize that, there is, because like you were saying earlier, there is just so much leverage in it. Like being able to get hundreds of people on a call all at once. When you do make that kind of money from booking so many qualified calls in a week or so, or you make that kind of money just pitching on the webinar, you're like, oh my God, let's
Mhm.
do it again. So also something that I do want to touch upon as well is obviously we've been doing these webinars primarily for skill to profit. Now, for your new program, Profit to Scale, I know that one of the main mechanisms that you want to use to get people into that program to keep it away from your personal brand as well and use like kind of paid advertising driven is a webinar. Kind of what went into that decision to use the webinar funnel for the new program, and why not just use a book call funnel for it, similar to how you've been doing with Skill to Profit?
Yeah, yeah, very good question. So I think with profit to scale, with a program that's far more expensive, you're talking like very much close to five figures for a program. In order for someone to take action on a program like that, they need a substantial amount of value that's delivered to them beforehand, right? They need to know that what they're going to get in the program is completely blows out the water of what they're actually going to spend on the program, and it's very hard to kind of like showcase that in a YouTube video or showcase that in a short form video, like what you're actually going to get on the other end. Um, so the webinar just made the complete like the most amount of sense in terms of being able to first, like, kill off limiting beliefs beforehand, which I think is incredibly important because when you're selling more expensive programs, there's always going to be more kind of doubts that people have because obviously there's more of a financial commitment they have to make. So running webinars made sense due to the fact that I was able to inform people, provide value, and also kind of preset the mind frame in which they would need to actually jump on the call with. So it just made the most amount of sense, and the fact that I'm trying to detach it from my short form content in which all my audience is kind of like teenagers like myself who are trying to make their first bit of money online, it was a case of, okay, cool, how can we do this, still providing the same amount of value without, stacking up a bunch of short form content and doing it all in one, 2 hour long, almost like live class, made the most amount of sense because I was able to kind of like tick off all the boxes of, right, they should be completely pre-framed in the right way now to take action. And yeah, I think the webinar was the most logical way to do it. And it also just gives you more touch points as well with these people in which they're going to jump on a call or book a call after the webinar. They already have that mindset of they know the basics of it. So they feel like it's easier, or that, let's say, the distance is closed a bit from where they are to where they want to get to because they know they have some of the value now. They have some of the information to get there. So yeah, the webinar just ticked most of the boxes, to be honest. It was either that or just push for YouTube to booking a call. But also having something to grab onto for them is super valuable. So a live lesson works really nicely.
Yeah, no, I am really excited to start getting that going properly with the paid advertising and everything. Two more questions, and then I'll let you get back to your day. I wanted to ask what is kind of like your favorite or the thing that you find most valuable about working with us?
Um, I would probably say just like the communication is huge. I mean, I know we spoke about it a while ago where I'm like, it pisses me off when people just take long to respond. Like if you're in business with someone, you're essentially, you have a relationship there and you have like an element of responsibility to actually support the people that you're providing the service to. And I think that your attentiveness, like your willingness to adapt as well. Like I remember, before we launched the previous Profit to Scale webinar, I had a video that needed editing, and I was like, I couldn't get anyone to edit it, and it was a VSL that needed editing quick. And I messaged Charlie, and I was like, "Can you edit this video?" Charlie is not a video editor by any means, shape, or form. He was like, "Yeah, I'll give it a crack." But like that willingness to help and just be on top of everything. I'll say to Charlie, "Cool, can we get on a call tomorrow to discuss something?" And he'll be there, he'll be ready, he'll be attentive, and I think that that's incredibly important. Where Charlie has a service in which it works, it's proven to work, and he has a lot of systems around it in terms of the steps he would go through, but he's still willing to be incredibly bespoke with his service and making sure that he's aligning to new strategies and being flexible in terms of what direction, we want to take things. So I think the attentiveness is huge. Like the quality of it as well is it's huge as well, where you really pay attention to things in terms of, you're happy to do revisions and stuff like that, if stuff isn't perfect. And I think that that's yeah, incredibly important. I think there's a lot of other agencies out there that will slap a template on top of, what a webinar would be. But I think also you pay an incredible amount of attention to the psychology of like what's previously happened and what's going on. It's not just a case of, yeah, well, this webinar playbook said do this, so we're going to do this. But you are completely adaptive with like the bonuses and the way we do a call to action and the way we kind of end off the webinar and the Q&As and stuff like that. It's very bespoke, and that works really nicely because it means that I don't have to be the same as somebody else. My webinar isn't the same as someone else's, and that allows me to stand out in the market as well. Um, so yeah, I'd probably say that's like the biggest benefit I've seen.
Yeah, I know that that's part of your ethos as well. When someone pays you money for your programs, I imagine that the last thing you want them to do is feel like they've just kind of been left in the ether. Like
Yeah.
when people do make that decision to work with you, whether that be coaching, whether it be services or whatever, I think that one of the main things that most people neglect is the actual fulfillment side of things. Like I remember going through phases doing webinars for clients where, I would take something that worked for another client and try it with a different client, and it simply just didn't work because we kind of
Mhm.
took that bespoke element away from it. And it was a big lesson for us. Is just like, right, every market is different, every offer is different, every offer owner is different. One thing that I was going to ask you as well, just on like a personal level, is how do you actually find like presenting on the webinar? Like I know that the first one must have been a little bit nerve wracking, but I feel like, if you are the offer owner, to be given a script by someone who's written it for you and then have to present that in front of hundreds of people can be quite nerve wracking. To have you kind of dealt with, or how do you feel that you've gotten better at actually presenting them?
Yeah, so I think with the first webinar, I remember I was like bricking it, right? Because it's funny because I'll make a piece of content and I could reach, 100,000 people and I don't break a sweat. I can do it in like 10, 15 minutes. But, you know, running a webinar or presenting a webinar is always a much more kind of like intensive thing because obviously it's completely live as well. So like, you can't afford to make mistakes in this kind of thing. Like the first couple times, yes, it was nerve wracking. I'm quite lucky in the fact where I teach like countless people. I jump on countless calls. I run a lot of Q&As and stuff like that. So I'm used to speaking in front of people. I've done like a few public speaking events as well now. So I'm more used to it. But the synergy in the way that you actually build out the presentation and the slides and make the language make sense in terms of in line with how I speak and how I present, I think works incredibly well. And it's because we've known each other for a while. Obviously, you used to follow me beforehand, so you've got a very good idea in the way that I speak and the way that I present things, which works really nicely. Because again, I keep referring to other agencies, but like an American agency, their terminology will be completely different, their language will be completely different. And I'm not saying that you can only work with British offer owners, but I'm saying that you adapt to their tonality, their the way of speaking, the way that they present, and that's like incredibly important because we've had it in the past where a few slides on the webinar weren't perfect and it wasn't the way that I would present, but over time we adapt and we improve on it, and now I can quite confidently let you build out the entire presentation, and I don't do this, but I would probably say that I could not look at it at all and then present it, and it would be pretty seamless. I obviously do look at it because it's worth checking beforehand, but I'm confident in the fact where it's not a case of you're using language and the way that you kind of build the slideshows wouldn't align with how I present. It all aligns very nicely. So, yeah, having confidence in the fact of what I'm going to talk about and the slides I'm going to go through are built out properly and in a way that makes sense and resonates with the audience. Yeah, it gives me confidence in running the webinar. And then I'm more eager to do it and I'm more kind of like excited to do it. Um, yeah, which will fall together quite nicely.
Yeah. Right. I will let you go back to your day in one moment. But one thing that I wanted to ask you to wrap it up is, what are you most looking forward to going forward? We're moving to 2 webinars a month for both of the offers. And I believe it's going to be an exciting rest of the year doing these webinars together, and we're going to get it super dialed in. But what are you most looking forward to?
What am I most looking forward to? I think just like making sure. I mean, obviously, we've had the problem with the previous webinar where the advertising wasn't complete on point, so it kind of ruined the actual outcome of the webinar. But once we get everything dialed in, and it's a case of we've perfected the formula, and we can just rinse and repeat it. I mean, I like presenting the webinars, and it gives me, you generally help people as well. I mean, obviously, off the back of the webinar, our goal is to make as much money as possible, but also, I get DMs from people that say they've joined the webinar alone and have, signed clients off the back of it and stuff like that. So for me, also being able to kind of keep in the back of my mind that even if, the webinar doesn't perform or it doesn't convert as we wanted to because maybe we're trying a different strategy or the advertising didn't do so well, I can still be confident that the training we've built and the way in which we presented it is helping people walk away and actually take action on that. I mean, a lot of my kind of my why factor in terms of why I do what I do is to genuinely help people change their lives. I take a lot of pride in people seeing results. So knowing that, you also build out the webinar with a frame of mind of how is someone going to walk away with this and how is this actually going to help them. Um, is super important to me in terms of like what I value. And I think that it aligns really nicely. So I'm looking forward to like the whole thing. Once we get it completely dialed in, and the webinars are consistent and we've got like the flow of things running really nicely. Yeah, I'm just excited to see results. Really, I think that's kind of what it all comes down to.
Yeah, 100%, dude. I'm excited, especially because cold traffic, like, with your organic audience, they're familiar with you. And, it's a bit of a like, if we get them on a webinar and we always do well, but I am excited to really test our skills of working together on cold traffic when we can get the paid advertising dialed in. And also what you said about people, you know, we never want people to leave the webinar with a sour taste in their mouth because, like you said earlier, you'll get people coming back after 1 or 2 months, or people will attend multiple webinars and they'll be like, yeah, I was actually on the first one. And I think that, when people go to write a webinar and they go like, right, we're going to make it hyper direct response, we're going to try and squeeze everything out of everyone, you kind of lose that personal touch that people actually might just not, they might simply not be ready at that time. But
Mhm.
because they've sat through the webinar and they've attended it and they trust you and you've nurtured them and you've trained them, that they will eventually come back. So look, dude, I'm super excited. And it's a pleasure working with you, dude. Like, you have an amazing offer, and it makes it incredibly easy for me to write and also just like put my heart into working with you, because I know how much you also take care of the people inside of the program. Like with webinars, I feel like you do run the risk of being like, you know, you're gonna die if you don't buy right now, and we're gonna give you all these bonuses, and you're gonna give you the scarcity and everything, and it can lose that personal touch. But I think one thing that we've done really well is making people feel like, we're almost extending the opportunity to help them, as opposed to, hard pitching them. And I feel like that's worked really well for us. But dude, I really appreciate your time. I really do appreciate your time. And hopefully we'll do another one in a year's time or whatever. And the goal for us is to generate 1 million in new revenue by the end of this year with webinars, which I think we'll do. So
That's it, 100%.
right. Amazing, dude. Thank you very much for coming on. Where can
Also,
people find you if people want to check out, if people ever want to join the webinar and sit and get a little taster of what we do?
yeah, it's just Callum Carver on all socials, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And yeah, when we do a webinar, obviously it's more than announced in advance. So yeah, feel free to kind of join up.
Right, amazing. Right, and if anyone's watching this, if you want us to build you out a webinar from scratch like we did for Callum, we have a done for you offer. And if you already have a webinar and you want us to beat your control in 3 goes or less, or we'll give you a full refund, then you can go to the links in the description. You can find everything there. And if you just want to see a bit more about what we do, you can join the newsletter. Mr. Carver, thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate it, Charlie.
Cheers, bro. See ya.